Hello everybody, it's HelpingHans, and today I'm going to give you a build order for the Africa Corps in Company Heroes 3. Let's get into it. So before we begin, let's talk about the battle groups that you might want to go for. You could go for a few here, but for this specific builder, I like to go for armor. The reason being is because salvage kits is really invaluable when you're playing as the DAK. There's normally, especially in team games, there's going to be a lot of destroyed vehicles throughout the game. And if you have this active by choosing this battle group, then you will have the ability to salvage destroyed enemy vehicles, and you'll be able to get 30% manpower and 25% fuel of the original cost of that vehicle. So here we have a couple of destroyed vehicles over here. So we can click on this, you can see the Rex Stewart. If we salvage it, we gain 78 manpower and 10 fuel. Here's a Matilda over here, 108.22, and we'll just click through some of the others here. And this is just a great way to basically just get free resources, right? Even if your teammate might lose some things, you can salvage their vehicles as well, and that gives you just like a big economy boost, which is really nice. So that's one of the reasons why I love to pick armor. Let's just confirm this right away. So here we go. So we select salvage kits. Next, I probably will go for something like veteran gunners, because then that gives me the 30% penetration to affected units. So this will work well if you're going for instance, kind of like a Panzer III, kind of spam into the later stages, because the Panzer III's, their main gun might not be as good at penetrating certain things, though you will be able to maybe give them the tungsten upgrade, tungsten rounds from the armory later on, which will increase their penetration, but also getting an extra 30% there helps as well. Maybe things like Matildas, Churchills, stuff like that. You could go for the superior fire drills, get the extra 100% machine gun damage, but, for me, it's a toss-up really. You can choose either one. Doesn't matter too much, but veteran gunners is probably a safe bet. Then later on, you have something like the access to the Flame Panzer III. Now, this is a great unit. Flame Panzer III is a really good unit because it allows you to burn a lot of infantry. It's very good, especially on urban maps. I will just build one right now for you for a second here and give you guys an example. So you won't get this until you're probably 10, 20 minutes into the game, something like that. And you might be able to get this out before you have access to tier 4, so you could maybe get this as an early kind of like tier 4 type unit. However, it doesn't really have any kind of anti-tank capability. However, Vet 1, it gets the access to Flame Blind, and if you activate this ability on any enemy vehicle, it will slow them down by 80%, and it will slow their rotation down by 40% as well. On top of that, it disables their target's weapon and vision. So this is a great ability here to maybe use on like an allied heavy, maybe like a Pershing, like a Churchill or something, to kind of stun lock them potentially, and then you can then put a lot of damage in through other means, like your anti-tank guns, maybe an 88 or even other tanks you might have in your arsenal. And then obviously you've got smoke canisters, which you can get from the armory as well. So this is just a great unit, and also good for chasing down retreating squads. But I wouldn't always make a Panzer a flamethrower variant. Then you've also got things like the Panzer IV command tank and battlefield salvage, as well as Panzer Storm. Now let's go to Panzer Storm real quick. This is a great ability, especially again, you get lots of vehicles. You activate this. If you just think your opponent's mined up a flank and you haven't got time to sweep it, pop this. That way you can then blitz through an area. Even if you get hit by a mine, you won't take an engine damage critical. And that way you can maybe slip past enemy line which they think they've covered with mines, and then you can maybe get back to some enemy vulnerable artillery like bishops and stuff like that. So that could be quite handy. Also increases their speed and rotation rate, as well as acceleration. Then once you've done that, you've got access to things like the Stuka Dive Bomb or the Stuka Anti-Tank Loiter. Now, in the recent patch, 2.0 patch, Loiter's just generally got a nerf, including this one. This one is not going to be as good as it was before, but it's kind of a nice ability just to drop down to support you as well. Any enemy vehicle in the area will get loitered, and by these Stukas, they'll target them and do some considerable damage to them. They won't outright kill them. You'll need to do some extra damage to other things, but maybe you've already brought down a tank down to half health. This might help to maybe finish it off. It's just some extra damage you can get. Or you could go for the Stuka Dive Bomb. You could drop this on a static position. I wouldn't really recommend dropping this on units that can move quite quickly, but maybe there's an emplacement you want to blow up. This would be great for that, to blow that up and get rid of it. So, but generally, I probably would go for the Stuka Anti-Tank Loiter. And the Panzer IV command tank, so this is a decent vehicle. It will buff up your units as well, so having that alongside your army would be nice. If you go for battlefield salvage, this is a munitions ability. You do get, every time you kill an enemy vehicle, you gain 200 manpower and 30 fuel. However, I'd probably would rather save that munitions into more Stuka Loiters, or maybe using the Panzer Storm. So you've got to be kind of wise on where you spend all your munitions. You can't always just go everywhere with all your munitions, so let's focus it in maybe Panzer Storm and Stuka Anti-Tank Loiter. So we'll go for the Panzer IV command tank. So to start off with your build, you want to go for Panzergren, and then followed through with a 250. and then another Panzer Grenadier. Now, how you play with these is very crucial. The 250 is a very handy unit, and however, at the start of the game, it is quite fragile. It will lose to something like a Dingo in a 1v1 fight, and you'll need to wait until you've upgraded it at the base. So once you've done this, you'll go for tier 1. So when you get tier 1, one of the first upgrades you should do is then go for the combat half-tracks. This increases their health by 40 and their armor by 5, and that upgrade for 150 manpower gives them that extra survivability against something like the Dingo. You want to be trying to keep your 250 alive to Veteran C1, because when it does get Vet 1, any unit that jumps inside the vehicle will benefit from healing. And I jump in straight away, you'll see what they won't get healing straight away because it's not Vet 1. Okay, now we give the vehicle Vet 1, and you'll see that this Panzer Grenadier squad's health bar is increasing, right? So it's a great way to, you know, get some healing on the battlefield by cycling in troops in and out of this 250. Also, the 250, even before it gets Veteran C1, has access to the medical station. This is got a considerable cooldown, so I'm just going to turn off my instant ability recharge, and we're going to pop it here. I'll just get all my squads here on low health, and then we pop this medical station. And then for 45 seconds, every unit, including friendlies, will all heal around this. You have to be out of combat for this to apply. But generally, this is why you want to always be going for a 250, because you want to get that kind of forward healing, so you can maybe pull your squad out of a fight if they're like down to like 50% health, but with full models available. You know, if you keep that 250 on the field and you get that healing, you won't have to retreat back to base to get maybe healing from your base sector. So we can see here the ability is about to run out, and it's 2-minute cooldown on this ability. And the other thing, guys, why it's so important to get a 250 is because it gives every one of your infantrymen this kind of passive that you can see above the heads, this green symbol here. This is combined arms, and you can see here it's giving them 10% more accuracy, 15% more speed, and the squad is 10% harder to hit. So this buff applies to all kind of standard infantry apart from support weapons, so it's just generally really good if you can have this available. Also, units, Panzer Grenadiers themselves, they gain access to this ability when they get Vet 1. They get a 33% capture speed, 50% weapon accuracy, and the bonus lasts for 30 seconds upon disembarking. So this game is kind of, the DAK kind of gameplay is trying to encourage you to constantly jumping in and out of your half tracks to gain these kind of passive buffs. So you want to keep getting your troops forward like this. And also when you do go for the combat half tracks, you can upgrade the 250 one of two ways. You could either give them the autocannon upgrade, which makes them, you know, pretty good against infantry as well as some light vehicles like fighting the Dingo, or maybe Humbers, slightly decent against that kind of thing. Or you could convert it over to the mortar variant. Let me just make 2 of these real quick just to show you guys. So we'll make this one a mortar variant. All right, so we've converted these both over now. So the mortar half-track, if it has Veteran C1, has the ability to do incendiary round, which is pretty good against units and placements and things like that. And this is kind of your nice indirect fire piece, because you need something cheap for smoke barrage. Right now, the LEIG call-in is not really worth it. It's quite expensive. It's just not really reliable. This is quite more mobile, easy to keep alive. If something tries to shoot it, like an indirect fire piece tries to shoot it, it's very likely to survive the first shot. And as it's quite mobile, it can quickly reverse and get out of danger. Even a 17-pounder won't kill this in one shot, so you got time to back it away after it's received the first shot. Whereas maybe like a LEIG, it's going to be a lot slower, harder to reposition. If it gets caught out, it's going to be in trouble. Also, the mortar half-track will have the ability for smoke canisters as well once you've bought the package here in the armory, which I'll show you now. So if you go for fire support elements, that'll be your next buy. So you go fire support elements next, and then this is the next thing you want to do immediately is go for the vehicle survival package. So that is super important. That gives plus 40 health to all vehicles. Every single vehicle that you own, apart from enemy vehicles you recover with the recovery half-track, you'll be benefiting from the 40 extra health. And not only that, they will also gain access to Panzer Tactician. So we'll research this. And then we can see here, now that Mortar half-track has the ability to drop smoke canisters, along with every other vehicle you have in your arsenal, like the Panzer III as well. And this is a great kind of get-out-of-jail-free card you might be able to pop, so that it stops enemies getting the line of sight on you, especially against anti-tank guns. They'll have to use attack ground to hit you. Every kind of like enemy unit will have to use attack ground to try and hit you if you're like in the smoke. So it's kind of like a nice way to maybe disengage and then retreat through the smoke, or use smoke offensively and blind enemy vehicle and then get past it to get behind and maybe get some more squishier units. So this is what I would end up doing. So you would have the Panzer Pioneers, 2 Panzer Grenadiers, convert the 250 into a mortar half-track sooner rather than later when you can, because you will need some indirect fire, access to their smoke barrage, to be able to blind support weapons, things like that, so you can push and attack your opponent. The next thing, so you go for your light support elements, you buy the fire support elements, then your next would want to get the flak feeling out. This is like the holy grail of DAK units. This is one of the best DAK units in the game, as it is amazing against infantry. It's also great at shooting down aircraft, and it can be very durable with all the upgrades you can get with it. And the reason why you want to get Vehicle Survival Package as soon as possible, because if you get this, it means that this flak feeling, will survive 2 shots from an anti-tank gun. If you don't get it, then it will die to the second shot from an anti-tank gun if you misplay with it. It isn't super mobile until you get maybe the last upgrade in the armory, which can improve speed. So you'll definitely be wanting to get the Vehicle Survival Package. And this thing, what you want to be doing with the flak feeling is you want to be using it to be pushing aggressively against infantry. They'll be perfect for countering any kind of thing like rangers or any elite infantry, as it has quite good range, right? It has to be stationary to get kind of the suppression on, but you can kite and move with this. So if let's say you got a ranger squad pushing you, you shoot at a range, or like an American bazooka squad, maybe you fire at them a little bit, that they might set up to try and get their long range shot in, but you just keep backing away, kiting and doing damage that way. Right? You'll also be wanting to get MG upgrades on your Panzer Grenadiers when you can afford them. Possibly, you could go for the sweeper upgrade here to increase your repair speed from your Panzer Pioneers, but earlier on in the game, when you had the 250 as standard, you might be wanting to give it a flamethrower, so you have yourself a clown car in the early game. So you jump in here with your 250, and then you'll be using this to maybe push past, maybe if we've got an enemy squad or enemy machine gun that's in a building. This would be a great way to maybe get behind and burn it out effectively in the early game. So once you've got basically these units, you'll also want some solid AT, and this will come in 2 forms. If you're in a kind of quite an urban map, probably want to maybe go for the Panzer Jaeger call-in. But if you've got a quite open map, like we're on Gothic Line here, it's quite, big open field here. I'd probably recommend going for the Pack 38 call-in as your next call-in. And you would be wanting to bring this up to the front line, press F to untow it, and then turn this straight away around to face the enemy. Now, you could convert this second 250 over to another mortar half-track, which I see a lot of people doing, so you can have even more indirect fire that way. Or if you wanted a bit more, maybe anti-infantry firepower, you could decide to go for the 259 variant. You could then, so what you do is you go for the 38 autocannon version. However, if you pop a infantry unit, like a Panzer Pioneer, inside the vehicle, it does increase its fire rate, which is quite nice as well. So you could use that and be aggressive like that. And here you can see combat garrison. When garrison, the autocannon of the half-track fires at 0.8 seconds faster. It's almost 1 second faster it fires. Now, I wouldn't want to put a Panzer Grenadier in there because they've got more combat potential than a Panzer Pioneer. And I don't really want to use the Panzer Pioneer that has the flamethrower that I want to be out and use, out and about and actually utilizing their flamethrower to maybe get units out of cover and stuff. So this is where I might go for another Panzer Pioneer and give these guys the advanced hazard removal package and throw them in that 250 instead. And if this gets damaged, they can then jump out and repair a lot quicker because they're the repair upgrade as well as the sweeper upgrade. So once you have all this as your kind of early game, you're going to be wanting to go for your 2.5 ton medical truck. Now, a lot of people might leave this sat in their base as like healing, but I like to use mine quite aggressively and have it forward on the map so I don't have to retreat my units all the way back to base. I keep that staying power, and that's the difference between maybe like maybe a beginning player and maybe more of a veteran player, is that they will use their medical vehicle, they'll use their medical half-track, the CMP medical variant truck for the Brits or whatever have you, like forward on the map to gain that important reinforcement and for the healing to keep your field presence. Because if you get retreated off the map, you can't hold on to your territory and the enemy will take it off you. So try and get yourself a medical truck out next to get that kind of reinforcement. You kind of already have the healing thanks to the fact that you have this 250 still. The 259 variant still has the ability to provide medical, and if it's Vet 1, you'll be getting healing inside it as well. But to get reinforcement as well, and more of a permanent source of healing because you can only pop that heal every 2 minutes, the medical truck is your kind of answer there. So next up, How do we tech up further than this? You've got some anti-tank here. You've got your Panzer Grenadiers there as well to lob AT grenades in case they get past you. The other thing here with the flat feeling is you've also, when it gets Veteran C1, it has the ability to have armor-piercing ammunition, and when it penetrates, it will also slow the enemy vehicle down as well. So this is a great way to have that, using this ability in conjunction with your pack gun, maybe your Panzer Grenadiers lobbing the AT grenade as well, to kill whatever kind of light vehicle will be present at this moment in the game. After this, you will be wanting to go further and go for more tech. There's a couple of things you could do here. So let's say you're up against somebody that's spamming a lot of bazooka squads. I might advise going for tier 2. And because support elements upgrades that you got earlier on, fire support elements upgrades, you automatically unlock the upgrade, all the vehicles and stuff in mechanized. I would probably recommend going for something like a Stug D. Now the reason why I like the Stug D is because it is quite tanky. It's got really good frontal armor. It's likely to bounce a lot of Zooks, especially before the American players have upgraded their bazookas from their weapon support center. And when it does get Veteran C1, it has the ability to lock down. So normally it can only fire about that fire, but if you lock it down, it can shoot much further. And this way you can use it to kite and hit those bazooka squads and those infantry blobs at distance. And then if they get too close, just press V and then just reverse back and just leave on auto fire and just keep shooting anyone that tries to close the distance. In conjunction with the flak feeling, this will if they keep trying to close the distance, the flak feeling will suppress them. And then if they're suppressed, they're going to be sitting targets for the Stug D. Stug D can also upgrade a machine gun as well to again increase its firepower. You can also go for something I would recommend going for the 254 reconnaissance tractor here afterwards. And this is a great unit here for DAK players and for the rest of your team to spot enemy units through the fog of war, and it gives you an idea of where your enemy units might be, maybe some cloaked units, things like that, so you can anticipate enemy movements. And on top of that, the reconnaissance tractor has the ability to drop an off-map barrage as well as a smoke barrage on separate cooldowns. So it's 90 seconds cooldown on the off-map barrage and a minute cooldown on the smoke. So it's very handy to have this in support of your whole army. And then let's say what you're now experiencing is your opponent is starting to go for, maybe they're going for like a Matilda, or they're going for Grants and stuff. You're playing against Brits. If you're up against Americans and they're going for things like Shermans, or Hellcats and things like that, I reckon probably then going for Marders, because Marders are kind of cheap and cost effective. They've got good range, and with other upgrades you'll be getting from the armory upgrade over here, they'll be quite durable as well. I would not be recommending going for Marders if your opponent is going for a lot of fast mediums, like things like Crusaders, or if they're going for like Chaffies and things like that. I would definitely not go for Marders, because the Marder will probably get one shot off, and by the time they're ready to shoot the second shot, the enemy tank, a Crusader or a Chaffee, has probably got past them. So it's probably not a good idea to go use Marders for those things. So Marders, great. Churchills, Shermans, Matildas, Grants, things like that, with things that are maybe a bit slower and they can kite and kill them like that. So if you're up against Crusaders and Chaffies, I would then recommend going for tier 4, and then you'll be wanting to go for maybe Panzer 3s. Get a couple of Panzer 3s out, and then alongside these Panzer 3s, you'll be wanting to go for your next major upgrade here will be emergency repair kits. Now you can get the emergency repair kits before going for tier 4 if you buy tier 3. So you can get this earlier on, and I do recommend, guys, if you can afford it early and you're ahead and you've got some decent map control, try and get your upgrades earlier, so sooner rather than later, because the later you get them, generally your population cap will be more filled up, and therefore you'll have less manpower income. So let me just demonstrate. We've got 137 manpower income right now. Let me delete these Panzer 3s. Now we have 173 manpower income, right? So therefore, if we get the upgrades earlier, in the longer sense of the game, you'll be able to get more manpower, basically. So try and go for those emergency repair kits as a must, because these give you the ability to get another 80 extra health on all your vehicles once again here, but more importantly, they also will repair out of combat 6 health every second. So it's a great way to keep your field presence on the battlefield and cycle in low health vehicles for stronger health vehicles, as they will automatically repair out of combat. Then you're probably wanting to go, so yeah, let's then, after you get yourself maybe a couple of Panzer 3s, give yourself the MG34 gunner, and try and use these aggressively and pick away your opponent and things like that. Maybe you might want to use one of these for going in for a dive around your opponent's base to kill maybe a couple of bishops, something like that. This would be good, especially once you've got the next upgrade, which is Rapid Advance. Rapid Advance automatically gives all DAK vehicles 20% speed and 15% rotation, so this would be the next upgrade I would probably generally go for. You probably won't need to go for the advanced optics just yet, because you've got the DAK track. You're kind of getting vision and and intelligence of your opponent's units and stuff because of that. So you don't. This is not like a priority upgrade for me just yet. So I'd probably go for the vehicle Rapid Advance. However, let's say your opponent's going with a lot of Matildas, some really heavy vehicles, maybe some Churchills. You probably might want to go for Tungsten Core maybe first over the Rapid Advance, because your Panzer IIIs need that extra penetration to maybe to be able to actually do damage and actually hit allied heavies. So we'll go for the Rapid Advance. We'll be going for the Tungsten Core, and then lastly probably Advanced Optics. You could also eventually then go for Veteran Squad Leaders. So Veteran Squad Leaders would be a great buy to then buff up your Panzer Grenadiers a bit more. It increases their gain rate and lowers their incoming damage by 10%, and they also get extra one squad man. But for me, this isn't a priority upgrade. You only really got 2 Panzer Grenadiers. And maybe if you're going for 3 Panzer Grenadiers, you might want to get that one sooner. But I generally leave that for later on, because it is 250 manpower. That's quite a lot, and I'd rather probably save that manpower for something else. So next up, there's a few things you could go for your super late game, and that is either the Tiger, going for the Tiger now, or going for a Stuka, or going for an 88. It all depends on the current situation in the game, right? So I recommend getting a Stuka out. And this is great if you're up against a lot of blobs, or if you're up against things like someone's being very campy and making a lot of support weapons. So here's a good case use scenario, bombarding this area, or like a blob coming in and intercepting their path or bombarding that. So that would be a great kind of unit right now in the late game, is to get Stuka. Especially, this is probably one of the best artillery pieces in the game. It's very mobile, it's quite easy to keep alive, and when it gets threat since you won, it has the ability to barrage a second time. So you can barrage twice here. So I'll just quickly demonstrate. We'll fire once. Then there's about an 80-second cooldown there for that high explosive barrage. But then we can do the next barrage, which is another creeping barrage straight away for 50 munitions. A little bit slower this time, but extra damage here, which could, help you kill a lot more units. Also, at this point in the game, you probably want to maybe throw away something, your 250 half-jacks, because they become a little bit useless, I guess, in the later stage of the game, and the buffs they provide aren't that kind of influential, because your guys by this point are all going to be Veteran C3, and they're getting most of their buffs because of that. So if you end up throwing away your 250s, that does free up some more population cap for you. Let's just delete that. Delete those two. So we're now at 84 again. So this allows us now to maybe go for an 88 alongside this Stuka. Unfortunately, this is still not enough to get a Tiger out. We would probably have to lose one of the Panzer IIIs. But let's see. If I was to lose a Panzer III here on purpose, let's say we push in and make a trade for it. And now we have enough resources, enough population cap rather, to call on the Tiger tank. And I would always recommend, if you can afford to get this out, you probably should do, because it is such a beast of a unit, and though you can't have it unsupported though, however, it is very good, but it needs to be supported with other units, like a pack gun or infantry with snares, things like that, or maybe another tank nearby, because it could get isolated and focused down, but it is a really good unit. And we still got 8 population cap available, maybe another couple of Panzer Pioneers here, or maybe another tractor for instance, or maybe even a recovery half-jack for you to maybe steal enemy vehicles to help repair your teammates. So this would be kind of like the final kind of like ideal DAK build, as it were. And I guess if you haven't got the fuel for a Tiger, the next best option probably would be a Flak 36. Now I would get this out if we're up against a lot of allied tanks, and also if their allies players do not have too much artillery. This is quite easy to bombard with bishops or whiz-bangs, so you've got to bear that in mind, or any kind of off-map abilities as well are pretty good against something like this. However, if your opponent doesn't have those things, definitely get an 88 out if you can afford it. And maybe, if you haven't got the population for the Tiger. So there you go. 88 is a good thing. Great support, especially if you're up against Pershings or Black Prince. This would do very well. Also, it comes with a Opel Blitz truck, which you can then later on convert to the medical variant. So if you do end up losing your original med truck, you can, kill 2 birds with 1 stone with getting yourself a nice 88. That will shoot tanks and also aircraft as well. And then you'll be able to get your med truck back with the Opel Blitz that you can then convert over for a munitions cost. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that build order. If you did, please do consider leaving a like and maybe a comment if you use this build order yourself, or if you've got your own kind of build order. If maybe there's some changes you think that would maybe improve this build order, but I think this is pretty solid as it is. And yeah, hope to see you in my new videos in the future soon. I make loads of Company Heroes 3 content, tip content, guides, epic games and casts and things like that. So if you're looking for co-content, I'm your guy. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next videos, guys. Take care. See you soon.